Well, I grew up down by Notre Dame School, and it was an area where there was a lot of low-income housing. There was a lot of alcoholism in families and stuff, and nobody talked about anything. Everybody, if something went on in the houses and in the homes, or the cops were called for domestic disputes or anything, it wasn't, everybody just hushed it and kept it to themselves. And it seemed, I look back at it now, and growing up there, it was like everything was a secret, and everything, and different things, right? And I didn't grow up in that. I had everything I wanted, everything that I really needed. I grew up playing baseball, hockey, dressed well, and it wasn't that, but it was, I developed the behaviors and the beliefs being in around that area, and it was just a way of life. I remember it was grade 5 or 6, and my parents were getting divorced, and I remember going to school, and I remember, I remember how good I was at playing the victim to get attention, right? And I would cry at school, and I would tell everybody what was going on, and because I just want the attention, you know what I mean? I just wanted everybody to have the attention on me. And even grade 6, the summer of grade 6 going into grade 7, I started experimenting with smoking marijuana and hash and stuff like that, because it was starting to really hurt. I didn't really know what was going on back then, at that time. And then grade 7, it was like I gravitated towards the drinking on the weekends and the crowd, and then it was, something's wrong with Ryan, right? And then I got the message that there was something wrong with me, from my teachers or whoever it was, and it didn't really matter. It's just the message that came through my thinking process, you know what I mean? My belief system. And then it was like, there's something wrong with me. And it was like, when I found that drugs made me feel accepted and comfortable, and I could go around crowds and I would just numb out, it was like it was my best friend. Because I knew that drugs and alcohol could change the way I felt. It made me feel good. And the disease of addiction is really a disease of feelings, right? And it's like I used to get a feeling, or I used to take away a feeling. Grade 8 was when I started using Electropam and Xerox and stuff like that there, and I was going to school like this, and it was either kicked out of school, or I didn't show up for school, or I was expelled. I stole from everybody around me. It was like the thing was to go breaking in people's barns and cars and mischief like that there, and it was I took from people, right? I took from society, and the more I did that stuff, I knew that, because when I grew up in my family, my parents, my mother, my father, and people, they told me that you don't take what's not yours, and I did anything I could. The ways and means reflected desperation to get my drugs way back at that age, right? I started smoking crack cocaine, and then it was, I was really I was a weekend user, and I was snorting cocaine and stuff like that there, and then it got into the crack cocaine with some of my friends and stuff. And it was like, oh well, I'm just doing it a little bit, right? I'm just doing it on the weekends. They do it every day, all day, and I'm not that person, right? Yet. But it was and then it started to develop, I was that person, but I was like, I'm not going to tell anybody that. I'm not going to, and then the inward, right, and the guilt and the shame, and condemned by my own guilt, you know what I mean? And anything that came in between me and my drug, anything came in between me and my drug getting out right here, right now, it was gone out of my life. my opinions about them. And you know, 21, I lost Andrew Campbell. He died in Toronto, in Ontario, and I was pallbearer for him, and that was drug related. Then it was, you know, like Alec Johnson died, and another young buddy of mine, and then it was my best friend Zach, you know, when I was he died when I was 25, and I was actually I was home 3 weeks before Zach's for my 19-year-old cousin Roddy Gillis drug overdose. I got to call that another one of my childhood friends, Colin Porter, passed overdose. So and you know, and Stephen Capstick and Kyle Walsh, and you know, and Merv Miller, and you know, the list goes on and on. Like me and Merv would tight buddies, sailed on, you know, and all these young people, you know. My uncle shot himself over alcoholism. I didn't think that smoking hash and weed and experimenting on the weekends and that would lead me to the streets of Lower East Side, Vancouver, East Hastings, shooting heroin in my arm. You know, like I didn't think that I would get that bad. I always said I'll never be that guy. But in the back of my mind, I knew I was heading down that road, right? And I knew, and I truly believe that an addict knows that when they can't stop, that they're my beliefs, but I believe that there's a point in time when you know that you're powerless, and when you're saying, oh, I'm not gonna do it today, and you wake up and you do it, the powerless feeling that you get when you just can't stop, because that's when you know you're addicted. That's when, you know, and it was like the hash and the weed. I knew that I was addicted then, but I didn't think that I was gonna end up doing needles and that, you know what I mean? Like I didn't think I would become an IV drug user on the street, and mentally it was very like I was so full of shame and guilt, you know, and I started really getting into trouble then. I remember I was 114 pounds. I went into jail in Grand Prairie. I was skin and bones, scabs all over my face, and I was just I was broken. And it saved my life because if I had kept going, I definitely would have died. Like the cops were in awe when they saw me, like, how are you even, you know, and I was so malnourished, and I remember the nurse weighed me at the jail, and she said, you know, we got to get some meat on your bones, or you're gonna perish, right? So it was like, there was a deep feeling then that I knew that I had to do something, that I knew I was killing myself. I ended up on the streets in Cape Breton. My parents, my family shut me out. There was no Ryan. Like, I wasn't allowed around because I either stole from them or I was very intoxicated when I was around them. I wasn't allowed in anybody's houses. Nobody wanted me around no more. No friends. Everybody, you know, it was. I ended up on the streets in Halifax, and you know, I was at the turning point in Halifax, and I remember I was behind the building, and I was all out of money. Everything was done again. I wrecked everything again, and I remember I shot my last bit of dope in my arm, and I said, God, I can't do this no more. And I remember saying that, and it was like, I went to detox. And I went to detox 50, 60 times or more, and all over Canada. In 2009, I went to Alcare Place in Halifax, and I got into 12-step fellowship, and I remember the hope and the message that they carried in the rooms, and I saw that people all over the world were getting clean and staying clean by practicing spiritual principles. And it was abstinence from all drugs, right? And I was diagnosed with Hep C from, I think it was around 22 or 23 years old. And another thing that I really had trouble with and made it more than what it was, but I decided to get treatment for my Hep C. That they had done a liver biopsy on me years before this, and my genotype was good, and they said they could cure me. So I was at Lululemon in Halifax, and then the word got out to my mom and my aunt, and they're like, "Oh, your cousin's a teacher, and your aunt's a teacher," and then I contacted my cousin Amanda. I went to her classes, and then it was instantly I fell in love, and it wasn't so much, it wasn't about the physical part. It was at first, and it felt good because I was stretching and stuff, but it was when the teacher started talking to my spirit, and it was like, practicing humility. You can come into child's pose and honor your body and listen to your body, and it knows best. And then I started connecting with my spirit, and it was fell in love with it, man. I practice yoga every day. I go to a 12-step fellowship. I'm very involved in that. I give back to life. I truly believe you can only keep what you have by giving it away, and what that means is you can only keep love by giving love away. You can only keep honesty by being honest. You can only practice spiritual principles and live these spiritual principles. And I travel. I'm going to Africa. I do things for my recovery, and I just try to tell my story and help others.